Thank you for joining us on the Modern Soccer Coach podcast today. Our first ever virtual panel that we've done on the podcast. So excited to put this together. The idea of it is to give a little bit more clarity and perspective towards specific challenges that high school coaches are facing around the country. We're joined by four different coaches, and then we're joined by an outside perspective as well. Our coaches are Nick from McCallum High School, Nicole from Boise High School, Adam from Pembroke High School, and Dan from Hingham High School. So we've got Massachusetts, we've got Idaho, we've got Texas, and then we've got our English coach, consultant, perspective educator who's going to give us some background as well. So this is all geared towards, for me, from a personal point of view, making the upcoming virtual coaches conference as specific as we can be, with still putting together some content and still trying to hit as many areas that high school coaches can benefit. So I am really, really grateful to all the coaches for jumping on today. I'll give them all a complimentary pass for the event. And I really thank them for helping us try and making the event as beneficial as possible and as specific as possible for the coaches in attendance. So we'll get started. We'll start off. We've got 3 topics. We want coaches to talk about their problems and then talk about how they navigate around those problems. So the first topic is preseason, short preseason time or short preparation time before the first game. So the first up is Nick. Nick, do you deal with a short period of preparation to game, short preseason time? And if you do, how bad does that look?
I think we're lucky in the South in that soccer is a winter sport. You can't do it in Idaho outside in the winter. And I have a soccer class. So I'm fortunate about 85-90% of my boys are in one of 2 soccer classes, and we meet every other day in class. And so we have plenty of time to prepare. Our official first day of practice is not until the first Monday after Thanksgiving, though. So we don't have official practices after school until the Monday after Thanksgiving. But before that, so we have a lot more time, I figure, than most other high school coaches around the country.
Wow! So you have so you can get all your team to register in this class, and you actually get extra time with them.
Yeah. We're really lucky. We're really lucky.
Sorry, Nick. What would that class look like? I mean, can you give us a week or a topic or a curriculum overview?
So, COVID has changed everything. COVID has absolutely changed everything. So this year we did absolutely everything outside. And I would just do, at the beginning of the year, we would try to be doing games, small games that increased our fitness. Everything, we try to do everything with the ball. We have 90-minute classes. It turns out to be about 70 minutes, 65 minutes outside every other day. We then go to general topics, like I might be doing something general of first and second defender. It'll be with me generally alone, because my top assistant is also our football coach who's in season with football. So he has limited time with me. So it's me with about 30 boys, ranging from academy level to boys who are brand new to the sport. So it's everybody. It's all ranges. And so we have to keep things big topics, and then we get more focused when we finally are with teams of similar abilities.
Fantastic. Very, very interesting. Nicole, what does the preseason period look like for you?
So official preseason for us is about 2 weeks max, typically 10 to 12 days. So it's very shortened. We're allowed to have open plays during the summer, and that can start, but between Club Far West Regionals, ECNL events, GA events, the consistency of attendance is really variable.
Yeah, let's talk about attendance. Are you restricted from, can everyone come? Is it like you can 2-hour practice, you can do it every day, or do you have restrictions with people, and do you have restrictions with time?
COVID obviously changed some of our restrictions, but we're working back to just whoever wants to show up can show up, as long as they're an incoming 9th through 12th grader.
Is 2 weeks enough? Is it too short? Is it just right? It's not enough?
It's not enough. I mean, when you think about it, storming, forming, norming, right? That's before you play your first game, 10 days. So it's absolutely insane.
Tryouts? Do you do that there? Is that included in that window?
Yeah, first 2 to 3 days are typically tryouts. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're still in the storming phase, probably 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, being around it long enough, I've been able to find different ways to start going out during the spring and identifying. We're in the fall season only, so spring and identifying players where we can hopefully know what's coming in and have less unpredictability within the pool.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that's leading the way so far as the toughest preseason time. Adam, what have you got for us?
Yeah, pretty similar in Massachusetts, really. I mean, obviously the weather is what it is. We had tryouts this year. They moved it up early, if you can call it early. It was August 23rd, 24th, 25th. Our first game was September 10th. We don't really touch Sundays. Kind of the school systems, I think, feel like, don't touch Sundays as a day to train or to play games. And then with that said, Labor Day's in there. And so as a coach, it's really like the last sort of long weekend before most of these kids really hit school full time. So I usually give them that weekend off anyway, just do something on Friday that's heavy. But for us, it's scrimmages in that window between the tryouts and then a few scrimmages just to try to get a sense of where we are tactically. And I think for me, one of the biggest parts I've learned is trying to exit a season as we just did, do individual meetings with all the players who are going to be returning, try to give them individual feedback, a little bit of, takeaways as like, these are the things I think are possible for you. These are the great moments that you had this past year. Maybe we can look to think about what might come next year and really try to push them individually to improve their game and to take a little bit of initiative while I can't see them. I cannot touch a ball with them or be around the football with them in the off season whatsoever. I can meet with them in the spring because we have a fall season. So I'll meet with them in the spring as a group of people that want to maybe try out for next year. And I'll talk about our off-season sort of program and what we do, whether that's hitting the weight room or it's like we don't call it captain's practices anymore. It's voluntary workouts. I'm trying to create that schedule of like, here's some camp stuff that you can do. I don't mandate it. I can't, but I try to empower the captains. I try to get them to rally the troops a bit. I try to make sure that the kids understand that if they are individually working to improve their game and to take the next steps in their individual game, that collectively we're going to benefit. And I really have got to the point over the last few years where I don't touch fitness whatsoever in my preseason. The expectation is that the boys show up and they're ready to go, so that I'm not like trying to find ways to. I certainly can build fitness into a training session, but it's so quick that even with the scrimmages, that even that next day is a bit of recovery, isn't it? So it is a hard one when you condense it. And this past season, not that records are everything, but I think we went 15-2-1. And the 2 losses that we had were in the first 4 games of the season because I don't think we were fully there yet. We actually played Dan's program at Hingham and we ran up against it. A really good outfit, really good team, but it was like we were, by the schedule, that's sort of who we had. So I don't think we're a really fully polished team until we get to the middle of the season, to be fair.
Dan, you've obviously got the same set of restrictions there. I'll ask you a kind of different question. I mean, that was really, really good from Adam there, talking about the player development piece and independence. But obviously with that short time, there's going to be S&C worries or concerns and load and all that there. I mean, I'm assuming you don't have an S&C coach?
Yeah, we don't have a strength and conditioning coach. As high school coaches, we have to wear all those hats.
So talk us through what Nicole's saying there, maybe 10 days, maybe when you give or take the tryouts and those Sundays, and maybe it's 9-8 days. I mean, are you cognizant of too much too soon? How do you kind of structure your intensity around that? I
was listening to Adam talk. I'm very much of the same mind as Adam. I don't like running fitness sessions in my preseason. My philosophy is let's get them on day one. Let's build our identity. Let the kids get used to my methods. Don't even waste a day on fitness. So I'm really very much of the same mind as Adam when it comes to that. I don't run fitness sessions. Just one of my mentors taught me that a long time ago. It's like, don't waste a day. Just start training. They're going to get fit by playing. So.
Yeah, I mean the volume of games, right? I mean, you're when you start, you're starting probably what 3 games a week in majority of high school seasons.
Yeah, I mean that's moving on to a later topic, but yeah, that's a whole different topic. Like once we're in the season, yeah, you have to be really smart. I mean, you can't. Yeah, we have about 3 games a week, sometimes 2 or 3 a week during the season.
Okay, well, with all that there, we'll let Gerard set up here and solve it all for us. To start with the time, Gerard, like, is this something you've done a little bit of work in the US? You've been in the US, Morocco, different cultures, England. Is it a common problem today with just lack of preparation time and a heavy game schedule coming up? What are some things coaches should be aware of there?
Yeah, so sorry for my lack of voice, which I've lost. But absolutely, and I think ultimately the challenges are the same. Now, I was making a few notes because I've experienced very similar things to a lot of you guys, and in particular Nicole. And even when I worked as a high school coach before, I can't remember if it was Michigan where it might have been the girls were in the fall and the boys were in the spring, or the other way around. I think in New York it was definitely a fall sport, but there was issues where it was. I remember getting appointed so short that never mind the actual pre-season being short, but I only just got appointed into the role, so I had literally no time. The biggest things that we did were games within games, so we were using a lot of possession-based games, thinking about the physical loading, so how we'd stretch players physically within a game, whether that's certain time constraints. So you could use a constraint where you want in fast, explosive work, or if you're working more on endurance and possession-based work, longer duration. We would do a lot of that. I'd be setting a lot of challenges with players, so that would stretch them not just cognitively but physically. So in certain practices, I would design it where I'd be training things like our core values. So 1v1 duels, quick free kick. So whenever the ball went out of play, and I'd do this even at the pro level and international level, ball goes out of play, it must be a 1v1 duel. So straight away, who's going to be the first person to react to get the ball back in play? Even if it was you, Gary, who gave the ball away, if I'm going, hang on a minute, I can get that ball there, it's a sprint. But then what might happen is Nicole's chasing me behind. So now there's a 1v1 duel that's quite intense on the outside. Can we get the ball down, quick free kick, boom, restart the practice? And even by the ball constantly coming in, the intensity is quite high. So we would do things around that. And even just thinking about, again, and the reason why I mentioned all the stuff before is because whether you're working at a grassroots level, high school level, which is some of the stuff that I've definitely done like you guys, or working at some of the other levels that you mentioned before, Gary, there's always going to be those sort of cultural influences that you got to be mindful of, those social cultural influences that have an effect on your pre-season. So I'd be thinking about how can I manage my time really effectively to get the most impact. So what's going to be the biggest quick wins? And it might be how I use certain feedback with certain players, where I'm planting enough seeds that they know exactly what we want when we get to a game day, or even in preparation for the season, or in future years, to be honest. And then the other thing was just thinking about how I could set players certain homework. So in the pre-season, we would be doing a lot on, and I think this is applicable to the high school sport as well. They'll know who they're playing against because they'll play against each other in the normal seasons, right, at the club level. So they'll know the opposition, they'll know their strengths and weaknesses, and they all group together. I won't be focused too much on the opposition. I'll be more focused on what we are and what we're strong at. But I'd certainly be saying to the players, how do you think we can cause them a problem? What could be some of the solutions today? What's going to cause us the biggest issue in this game? And I'll be even asking them what are going to be some of the difficult games that we're going to face, rank them. I did this even in America at high school level. It worked really well, where the players actually ranked, you know what, this game is going to be an easy win. This game, that's going to be a problem. But then I was actually more interested in, well, why do you think that's going to be an easy win? Because what you don't want them to do from a psych perspective is take the foot off the gas. So I'd be thinking about that. I'd be always thinking about the mindset of, why do you think that's easy? Yeah, but we always beat that team. We always get points on that game. Yeah, but don't assume that you will this year. So we've got to, and people are always watching you because the opposition are always trying to think, what's your high school doing? How can I prepare for that next game? Especially if they meet you in the playoffs, have they got some sort of homework on you? So I'd be using little things like that for the preseason. Hopefully that answers your question.
That was great. Topic 2 is style of play. And what we're looking here is to see what are the tactical challenges that you have in communicating or getting across your game model. If it's a possession-based game, is it the game schedule? Is it the conditions of the field? Is it the type of opponents you're playing? But can you talk a little bit about tactically? Start with you, Nick, about where you see your biggest challenges in getting across the type of game you want to play.
I would say, pardon me, around the city here, there's very high level coaching. I feel there's a very strong club presence. There's a new MLS team, Austin FC, and their academy setting up. And so the style of play is a very modern possession attacking game that we're coming across. We had a team meeting, in fact, today. We had our first intra-squad scrimmage yesterday, and I was talking with my varsity about how, what we need to improve. And we're pretty similar in terms of tactically how we approach a game within reason. Sometimes, though, we will find, and I'd be interested to hear from the other coaches, I've gone against coaches who are 10 times better than me, but who just play a hunkering back and then a route one game because they know with the talent they have that they can't do anything else. And this is their best chance at success.
Interesting. So you feel that the game is evolving in Texas because of the general level, the club level's improving and the overall level. It's becoming more of it's easier to get that that possession based in high school.
I think so. In fact, I was telling him I became the JV coach at our high school in '99. And back then we were the sweeper stopper, hoofing it up, winger, those cleats better be chalky. You got to stay out there. And then you send in to the tallest guy you put up top, regardless of his quality. But things have changed. And I think it's a change for the better. The style is prettier. The kids have more fun. What kid doesn't want to try to attack? I mean, and let's do that, and let's make it look beautiful as best we can.
Brilliant. Great way to start it. Nicole, do you share those experiences with yourself, or is it a little bit different?
So here it's a little different. A lot of what was mentioned before about the players knowing each other comes into play. The biggest challenge for me becomes, how do you keep your identity and your style of play, but still adapt to the known opponents? So with limited time and limited training opportunities and 2 to 3 games a week, typically it's a lot of video work. It's a lot of just reiterating the why we do what we do and acknowledging when we, sometimes during games at halftimes, the why that we switched and started panicking versus sticking to what really works for us. And it's some trial and error, especially during that preseason and that front half of the season for us, for sure.
Very interesting. Do you have, what type of access do you have in terms of the scouting and the video analysis?
So we typically use the VEO system just to do that. And we have an NFHS network that will videotape and record games that'll allow us to do that. Typically, we play the opponent twice. So sometimes it's nice to be able to use the first game in order to prepare for the second game. And then coaches wise, they're all over the board. We've got coaches that have been there for 20 years who are teachers in the area. And then we've got coaches like myself who are, coaching high school because in my role, I can't coach in a club. So it's all over the board in terms of style and predictability.
Brilliant. Adam, Dan, I haven't done this on purpose, but I'd like to see, with the intensity of playing those big games early and the competitiveness of those games straight from the bat, like within 2 weeks, you're in the league play and all that. Is that difficult then to get, we'll start with you, Adam, is that difficult to get the tactical bit through with all that competition coming so early?
Yeah, I think Nicole might have mentioned trial and error, right? I think that's part of the season, right? Some years you'll graduate 10 seniors and you start in core, maybe it's gone, and you're now like, okay, well, let's bring this group in, and you're like, I'm going to go 4-3-3, and I'm going to do this and that, and then you get out there and you're like, whoa, no. Right. I think coaching is was just doing some grassroots courses and reflecting, right, and evaluating. So we get into the season and we think we want to play a certain style in a certain way, and then we're tinkering with it. And I've learned quite a bit from my players, right? I have a bunch of all-in football, soccer guys who love the game, and they're uber committed, and 95% of them are playing club at a high level. So I'll ask them how you feel about some of those games, what worked, what didn't work. And we tinkered, and I allowed probably our best players to tell me that, Coach, I actually feel like I'm probably better as a false nine. I can sit in between the lines a little bit and I can get on the ball. And I was like, okay. And so all of a sudden we kind of find that identity, as somebody mentioned earlier in the call. And then we kind of grow as a unit, and we're able to now kind of tinker a little bit as we go and fine tune. And we talk about tightening the screw a little bit. Games, the hardest competition early can be really hard and difficult. It can also be a massive lesson, right? So that all of a sudden you see, because you play against the better teams and the stronger teams, you see where maybe your deficiencies, you see some areas where you can really kind of fine tune and grow. And I almost prefer that early and take a few losses or take a few, hard ones, then come out the gate and go flying 4-0 and beat up on teams. And then you really think you know who you are. Then all of a sudden you get punched in the face at some point during the season, and now you're struggling. So, yeah, I think it's all part and parcel to the season. And it's a roll of the dice, too. The schedule is not created by any of us as coaches. It's all of a sudden you get it, and you're like 2 weeks before the season or so, and you're like, oh, this is exciting. We're going to play Hingham in the first game or what have you. So every year is different. Every year is unique, and whether that's the players in your squad or, the opposition that lines up against you. And to be fair, all those teams change too. So even though you might have the VO video, I do the same thing. I've got VO, so I'll have all the film from this past season, but it'll be very different from team to team when you watch those. You can't really expect it to be completely the same every year.
Great point. I'm sure the players probably enjoy getting into games quickly, don't they? Like players at every level just enjoy matches and in that schedule over preseason training. So yeah. I just thought of it from there. We'll go on to Dan here. Dan, the question I wanted to ask you can it be sometimes difficult when it's games, results? Can it be difficult to keep people into the mode of progress, big picture, methodology, all that there? Can results sometimes get too much into the conversation?
Well, even, a game's a learning opportunity, right? So you hope that your team is better at the end of a game than at the beginning of a game, even if it's not a good result. So you can build tactics, you can build your identity in a game, whether you win, whether you lose. I'm not sure if that answers that. Is that?
No, absolutely. It's just a case of then, because sometimes, again, it's not just about the confidence of losing a game, but sometimes you can win a game big, right? And it can be a little bit of a mismatch. How do you, in that one, how do you try and communicate that there to the team that, maybe there's still a big picture here that we want to improve tactically?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Whether you're losing a game big or winning a game big, there's still teachable moments, or a close game. There's teachable moments in any game, whether it's tucking a guy in, certain attacking patterns that fit into your formation. There's always teachable moments. And so you should use every game to teach, just like you were going to in a practice.
Fantastic. Gerard, we'll bring you in. I want to follow up on something Nicole said and the challenge of balancing improving your model, your style against adapting to the opponents and the scouting and in that little gray area, that murky area in such a short turnaround time. What would some ways that you would deal with that there?
Well, some of the stuff that we've always tried to do is focus more on what are our principles. I know Adam mentioned about identity, but we would often think about, obviously, what are the principles of the game, but what are the principles of how we want to play? What is it that we're going to do? And I would be designing things around that. So we're always reinforcing those things, because obviously there's a lot of modern trends going on that we're all aware of. We're aware that certain teams, you know, whether it's pressing, counter pressing, how they'll play through the press. Again, universality in pressing and counter pressing has been around for many years, but the fact that players are playing with a lot more fluidity, I don't know if you'll see a lot of this at the high school level, but even if we take Man City the other day, and there've been obviously a lot of Guardiola's teams, they won't have a natural number 9 or a centre forward. They'll play with players in deeper positions. They'll control central areas, overload central areas. So for me, I would be thinking around what are our principles, but then how are we going to train those habits? Because we want good habits. The whole point of training is to elevate standards and to form good habits. And obviously, we would be looking a lot on, again, what are the opposition doing, but more so counterbalancing that with what are we going to do, what's our strengths, and how can we outplay them? So how can we dominate and outplay? And with that as well, when we're training, we're always trying to think about how can we get it to the best maximum it can possibly be. So similar to what Nicole talked about, and even Adam, if the opposition are doing something, one of your coaches, or if it's just you, you've got to manage the opposition to recreate that same problem. So we'll be doing that in training, where we're literally recreating that same scenario and give us a problem to solve, and then we'd work with our team to solve that problem. I think it's so important that within your match prep and your opposition analysis, I know you do this, Gary, as well, your language is really important, because that will influence what principles you're training, but also that the picture in the mind of the player and what they see in that moment, the solutions they can come up with. So I'd be really careful around. So whenever we prepped, and this was the same with, to give you a story, with Oshan Roberts, who's obviously now at Crystal Palace as assistant manager. He was my technical director with the Moroccan FA. And he used to be really careful on the language and the principle he was working on to a real meticulous detail. So he'd be asking, why are we working on that? How are we going to phrase it? What does it look like? And for how long? And what are we expecting to see? And he would even be going into the detail of, what does bad look like? What could go wrong? So straight away, he's thinking about the what if, and he's thinking about playing in the future. And that was a great piece, because the players, even with the Moroccan national teams and with the Welsh national team, we saw at the Euros, and even some of the stuff that we've seen this season with Crystal Palace, they're always sort of being very creative and playing ahead, playing in the future. So you're being unpredictable to the opposition. I think that's a huge part. Rather than being predictable, can we develop players to be unorthodox?
Very good. Yeah, we've almost opened it up to another, writing down another topic. So we may have to jump back on here next week and do another one of these on match day and session design. We'll go back to the third topic there. That was brilliant, Gerard. The third topic, which is self-development. Obviously, you guys are wearing it. I think it was Adam said it. I've wrote it down. I didn't write who said it. Wearing number of hats. How do you find time, Nick? I know you do a brilliant job with definitely a modern soccer co. Everything you're signed up for, all the webinars, everything we do. I mean, how difficult is it to find time for your own self-development, and is that a challenge throughout the year? Is some months easier than others, or how do you navigate through that?
Well, for me, I opted, when I was much younger, for a life and decided to not coach club. So I only have, I'm a teacher, I'm our Latin teacher at our high school, and then our soccer coach. So when our season ends, which is in late March, I am officially done with games. So I have a fair amount of time for coaching development that I have to, that I work around my family schedule. And what I have found is I just have to ask. When I did my, years ago, when I did my national diploma with Vince Gansberg, I just kept in touch with him. And I would just ask him questions. And he's so generous with his time. He would always answer back. I'm lucky to have UT Austin, literally, blocks away from our campus. And Ange Kelly is the head coach there. And she is insanely generous with her time, as are her staff. And I will just call them and I'll say, I have this problem. How do you address this problem? And they give me very specific reasons. And I ask them how, why, and I found those kind of questions when I ask, I've learned so much more. And that's when I've really found myself develop with these long conversations I've had with local coaches. I have a buddy who's now one of the Austin FC Academy coaches, and we talked for 45 minutes last night. And I was asking, what do you see? What do you look for in this? And so for me, it's a lot of the informal conversations and just reading books and watching as many games as I possibly can. And that's how I find the development. But for me, again, it's just being willing, humble, whatever the right word is, to admit you don't know and to ask those who are better than you so that you can grow as a coach.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Sounds like you're really, really aggressive and looking for those, not just looking at opportunities, but also looking for feedback from people as well.
When you're not in a club situation, I'm by myself on my campus. I don't have people to knock ideas around. So I have to find those people to do that. And if I want to improve, I have to be, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but diligent, determined about it. So, and it's worked well. It's worked well looking back of how much I've developed over the past decade.
Nicole, where's your challenges in the development side? Do you have any challenges in the development side?
I think there's always challenges on the development side. I think we're kidding ourselves if we think we've got it all answered from the day to day. For me, because of it being such a condensed season, a lot of it isn't informal opportunities to grow the education. There's an occasional college credit continuing ed type course that the ADs will throw out to us, but mostly for us within our culture, it's mentoring and reflecting in terms of as a collaborative group and a staff, just to try and continue to evolve and get better.
And what does that look like? A community, a small community? Is that something that you change the mentor every week, or how does that work?
So typically for me, there's 1 to 2 coming in and out during, say, their C course or a D course, or they've just gone through a grassroots and they want some additional minutes. So they'll come in and hang out on our sideline. But as a collective group, it's our varsity and sub-varsity staff that meets regularly and kind of just reflects and gives each other feedback. It works pretty well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So you're also then looking at, getting a set of eyes on your work and then also lending yours to someone else's work as well.
Yeah, because I don't think, with just a singular input, we can catch all of the dynamics, especially in such a condensed schedule.
Adam, in the Northeast, obviously, is a rich soccer community. There seems to be a lot of stuff going on up there, education opportunities, but lack of time and all that other stuff that we're dealing with as coaches. How do you navigate through that there of finding ways to get better yourself?
Yeah, I mean, my past job, I worked for a club. I was a DOC, and we were an affiliate of Liverpool's International Academy setup. So fantastic education opportunity there from the likes of McBeal and that. But now I'm a lead director for one of our largest, club soccer leagues in New England. And so I'm now sort of, running schedules in the league format and structure. And one of the things that I recognized was that we didn't have enough coach education opportunities for our coaches in our region. We were sort of relying on the state association to put those on. So we made a significant sort of initiative to try to add more coach education opportunities for all, and to do that in a calendar that made sense. I always felt like a lot of the coach education opportunities that were around were like during your club soccer calendar, or during, like in this case, your high school season. So it would land on a weekend and you need to dedicate all the time, or if to hire the licenses, obviously you've got to do a lot more work, right? So the COVID experience has changed a lot for the virtual, which has been a little bit unique, right? So I did a D license over last summer that we put on, and it was virtual, and you met Wednesday nights from 9 to 11. And then you did the in-person, and you were there for a day, and you knocked it out. But it was a great experience. And so my job now is, outside of high school, is pushing as many coach education opportunities that I can with U.S. Club Soccer and USSF to put out to the club coaches in the area. But then those are really available to any coach or anybody that was looking for more education. So we've got all the grassroots. We got C license coming up in 2022. I got La Liga methodology coming up in 2022. And we've got a coach locally that is runs Welsh FA courses. So we've got a C license there as well. So I think more education, the better. As Nicole so rightly said, right? None of us have a real firm understanding exactly how things should go. There's always room for growth, and there needs to be more opportunity. And to that point, we lack for female coaches in our region. And we put on women only courses because I think on the girls side in high school, there's some girls coaches, but many of the coaches are males. And I think for me personally, it's one of those things where we need more sort of female and women coaches that can be good role models for the kids and for the players. And so even stuff like that is important to try to find and push forward. And we're actually thinking about doing some coaching courses for kids. So you get your high school kids, right, the high school age players that maybe want to start getting into coaching and education, and perhaps put on some grassroots courses for them too, and have them be a part of the educational process as well.
Fantastic. How's the response been for the female courses?
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah, it's been great. We actually created, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but we created a women's advisory committee so that we had women that could basically work with me and talk to me about things that they think that are important. Because it has been a little bit of an old boys club, to be fair. But they've been very well received, and we're looking to continue to do more. And hopefully we can be part of the solution rather than, status quo as it's been.
Dan, what does it look like for you? What does a year schedule look like in terms of your development and improvement? Yeah,
last 3 years I've gone the USSF route, United States Soccer Federation, and the MYSA, the Mass Youth Soccer Association, has a great director, Ian Mulliner. He's a world-class educator. The education I've got in the D and the C license, I feel like it's a world-class education, very challenging. I just came off about 6 months, a lot of hours. And so that's where I fit it in. It has nothing to do with my high school schedule. It went from about March all the way through the end of August. And so I got a club to work with and video and use the VAO and all that. But it's a really great education that Ian does. He's a really great teacher.
Where are you in your pathway at the minute?
I just got my C.
Okay. So as you go up, it starts to get a bit more, because I'm working with a couple of coaches now that are in that C/B bracket, and the time requirements start to creep up a little bit more and more.
The C was hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Hundreds of hours.
Mostly mostly remote work, COVID?
Yeah, this year it was a lot of online. We did have a 4-day in person at the headquarters in Lancaster. It was a lot of online. You got to take videos of you coaching your teams and send it in for evaluation. And it was awesome.
Brilliant. Yeah, along those lines then, bringing in Gerard to Dan and Adam there about this new remote kind of COVID. We've been pushed into a different form of learning. Your work in Morocco, and feel free to share both your work in Morocco and your new project with You Learn Play. Where do you see coach education? Where's it moved in the last 12 months? And give us a little bit of insight there.
Well, it's interesting. I think more federations will probably go online. we're seeing a massive shift towards blended learning, and there's certainly a lot of benefits with that. Of course, it's so important. You've got to be competent on the grass. You have to be effective on the grass, and practical is so vital. But COVID, there's a lot of positives that have come out of it, because it's made people realize that there are a lot of stuff that we can actually do online. Even there was things that I was pushing for years ago where I was saying we're spending far too many hours in a classroom doing this stuff, and it's long and it's boring and it's a tick box exercise. And actually we can do that online, or we can do it virtual in half the time. So I think it's probably helped us realize that, save a lot of costs, and the interactions that you can get online and the virtual discussions, which I think are equally as beneficial or as valuable. It was interesting because in Morocco, very different to the rest of the world, we did do stuff online, of course we did, and we did a lot of, as they call it, visio conferences, but most of our stuff was in person, because the rules were very different in the country, so it was very different to what was going on in Europe and in America. We were still having people come to the complex. They'd have to do a COVID test, of course, but we were very much, in all day, every day. And what impressed me the most was the amount of hours they do. Like, it was incredible. But they have a lot of breaks, so they'll break it up. And I think that's a huge key, is having that informal learning time. So not everything's sat down, sat in a classroom, but we'd be doing a lot of flip chart stuff, a lot of interactive, very informal. We'd have slides as a guide, but pretty much we would go around the needs of the group. And some of the questions that we were getting, that's where the conversation would go. And it's not that you're going off on tangents, you're actually going based on where the curiosity is. If you have to reel it in, of course you would. Or we'd have like a park it wall where we'll try and revisit that later. But ultimately, we would let the candidates drive the course, and that was really powerful. And we would have loads of coffee breaks. I mean, they love the coffee in Morocco. So you're constantly having coffee, constantly having, like little mini siestas like in Spain. But it's actually, honestly, it's incredible how much you retain in terms of knowledge. So when I think about how we structured the course, I never felt, as an elite coach educator, I never felt stressed, not once. Some of the stuff that I'm trying to do now at You Learn, Blay, and some of the other things is around going more beyond the X's and O's. Because I think a lot of coaches tend to focus on the tactics, and I know individual tactics are important as well as teams, but for me, it's really important that we go beyond the X's and O's. So if we look at, well, everyone mentioned it, but even some of the stuff that, Nick and Dan, you were talking about, that obsession to know more, spending 45 minutes on the phone with one guy talking about whatever, some of the other experiences you've had in mass, and all the other stuff that are important around the environment, the practice design, whatever it may be. That's the stuff that we need to get better at. Because if we're not good at that, if we're not good at relationships or anything else, doesn't matter how much we focus on X's and O's and positional play or whatever else. And we sort of like pretty much threw that out the window in Morocco. It was quite good because we were given a blank canvas of go and design the best education, what you think it could look like. And I was really excited by that, because we obviously went, all right, well, what do coaches need to get better at? What makes the game different? What do we think the future game will look like? Try and be curious and think about, what would you want the future game to look like? What does the future player look like? Not just for you and your identity and your profile, but try and preparing players for the game of tomorrow. What's going to be the biggest difference that I can add a value on as make a significant impact on that person's life? Because we only really get one proper run at it. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to be their last coach. So often we're very good at, whether it's in coaching or in coach education, informing people. But how often do we inspire and involve? So can we involve them in the process and inspire them so they're curious and they go away and ask more questions? And that's a lot of the stuff that, I'm doing, and obviously I've done in Morocco, and some of the things that I'm really passionate about.
So our top class, Guys, thank you so much. Nick, Nicole, Adam, Dan, thanks so much for coming on. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Gerard.
Thank you.
Cheers all.
Thank you.